Welcome, friends, to Tanked Up, the podcast about video games and beer. I'm one of your hosts, Ben. It's episode 308, and I'm here with Aadil.
I'm still here.
Hey, perfect. Thank you for those in the stream sticking around with us for our 2 hours of recording, and thank you, friends who'd listened to the previous episode. Thanks for coming back to us. Let's open some beers and get on with discussions. Our topic for the week. I am going to open a beer. And before we'd started, an hour or so ago, I said I was going to Google the pronunciation of this brewery, because I can never remember how to say it. But it's a left-handed giant beer. But it's a collaboration with Uitje.
Uitje. I think it'd be Uitje, probably.
Yeah.
J-E, right?
Yes. Uitje. Uitje. This is not King of the Woodland, which is the big beer that they have, the big 11.5 or 12% stout
I was going to say
that they push out. This is Woodland Creatures, a smaller version of the beer that they produce.
Sorry, you cut out, so I didn't actually hear what you said.
Oh, it's a Woodland Creatures.
It's with the anime poke.
Yeah, almost like a Pokemon style owl. It's only 6.9%. But it is a pistachio and honeycomb stout with lactose, pistachio, and honeycomb in it. That's it for ingredients. Barley and lactose are the allergens. That's everything that they give me. But yeah, I thought I'd go for the smaller version. I know we both drank King of the Woodland last year when they released it.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they've done a lighter version before. They may have, but I've never picked up on that. So I thought I'd try that instead. What are you opening now?
I am opening a beer from Scotland called the Profanity Stout.
Ooh.
It's deeply irreverent. It's from William Brothers Brewing.
Okay.
It is 7%. 330ml can, black in color with full floral fruity aromas and a huge roasted malt character that gives way to a profanely dry hopped finish.
Oh,
and
nice and succinct.
It has ingredients. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's get these poured. As I furiously write away the beers that go. Oh no! Ooh, this one's a lovely, big, frothy, carbonated beer. I did chuck it into the glass, so we'll see how quickly this dissipates. Oh, that nose is nice though.
What's Are we getting like roasted coffee?
Very, very light coffee. Very, very light sort of roasted coffee. But I absolutely hit with that kind of more nutty pistachio note and a sweetness, which I would assume is the honeycomb coming through as well, but a little bit of a burnt sort of sweetness again, as you would kind of expect from that. But it's lovely. That's a lovely nose. It has dissipated enough for me to take a swig, but it's nice and black again, as expected. Nice brown head, which, as everybody could see, was massive when I poured it. Again, another like big carbonated beer when you pour, but it's really smooth to drink. Like, there's barely any carbonation in that at all. Not even like a little fizz at the start when you take it in. It is almost just flat and smooth straight away. And the flavour is like the nose, but it isn't anywhere near as big as the nose. This is a very light flavour. Very, very... I was going to say sort of very flat in the flavour as well. You know, you're kind of hit with what it's doing, and that's it. There's no kind of curve to this beer. But as I was about to say it, stuff kind of started to open up a little bit more. So you kind of hit with that little bit of sweetness, a little burnt sweetness. So the honeycomb, which interestingly was kind of one of the last flavours I got on the nose, comes through sort of first, but accompanied by a little bit of the pistachio. But the pistachio's much more reserved on the flavour than it is in the nose, and I suppose kind of expected for something like a pistachio sort of flavour. And again, not kind of like salted pistachio. It isn't as strong as that. It's really light and maybe overtaken a little bit by this slight burnt sweetness that starts everything kind of off. But everything almost disappears into this kind of slightly more sweet milk stout, almost. You know, it's a stout. It's got a little light burnt coffee in there, but it's got this sweetness in the background to it that isn't the honeycomb, that doesn't have that sort of more burnt flavour to it, or harder kind of sweetness to it. It's very, very creamy and light, sort of in the background. And kind of, you're almost searching for some of these things. It feels like a milk stout, and they've gone, oh, we'll chuck a couple of bits into it. But it is unfolding more and more that I drink it. So it might be wise for me to return to this a little bit later, as kind of my palate gets rid of episode 307's beer, and kind of acclimatizes a little bit more to this. So I'll return to it towards the end of the episode. But that's my initial sort of take on it.
Fair enough.
I'll try and
sounds quite good.
pour the rest of this in without it, you know, being absolutely carbonated and massively heady. Was it Profanity?
The Profanity Stout, yeah. Sorry, I had freshly washed my glass and it's stuck to my coaster. So quite dark. It didn't pour nearly as frothy, but immediately got lovely roasted nose with, I'm gonna say, like a rounded, sweet, fruity character to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a nice, like, so it's both sweet and roasted. On the pour, I was just getting the roasted notes, but now I'm smelling it. It is, like I said, just a nice little sweet, light, fruitiness, which makes it quite an alluring smell because it does have both that sweet and that roasted.
Yeah.
First sip, very good. I want to, now that my mouth is coated.
Expected it's kind of like, have the sip, make the noise, go back for more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, it's definitely got that roasted character. It's not too burnt. It's like not acrid burnt. It's just a roasted malts. Not a lot of, just a touch of chocolate, but really just roasted malts. So, and not that sweet to begin with, so you're not getting toffee. I think it said somewhere in this irreverent thing, yeah, huge roasted malt character, and I think that's the key. Is usually you get this roasted character with other things, but I'm not really missing other things because it does have that light fruitiness, that light perfuminess. That's on the nose is sort of on the finish. It's sort of subtly there, but as the roasted character starts to fade, you get that a more flushed out flavor because the other stuff is not fading as quickly. Yeah, this is really good. Profanely dry hopped finish sounds. I mean, it's a nice finish. It is I guess to me, profanely dry hop, anything that's a profane finish, I would kind of expect to be like a step up in flavor, like intensity, and this is not like more intense. It's a very dry hop finish. It has this slightly appliness, fruitiness, and some more sweetness coming through, while the roasted maltiness starts to gives way to a bit of an acridness, and you think those things might fight, but they're paired really well together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like it's still like here's the roasted main taste. It's fading away. Now I can feel out this finish, and to me that's not profanely anything. Then if it's like I'm in the back seat now that someone left the front seat, you can see me. Um, but this is me criticizing the flavor text. I really like this. It's nice and it is a nice solid roasted. If you want to have roasted malt but without any burnt flavors, and you're not looking for like coffee or toffee or any extra sweetness, this has just enough like fruity sweetness to round it out. But it is a very very roasted malty stout. The one thing I will say is, I immediately forgot it was 7%.
Doesn't have that kind of level of body to it.
No, I think maybe some of that sweetness is the alcohol sweetness is going really well with the that sort of fruity floral thing. But it's but it's deceptive in that, like, I can tell now that I'm looking at it, that the mouthfeel wise, that it does have that thickness, that stuff that I think the last couple stouts I've had have been like closer to 5, and I've complained that they have good taste, but they don't, just because of the lower ABV, they just can't have that viscosity.
Mm-hmm.
And this just has it, but it just fits. Like, this is how I think a stout should be, so I didn't notice it, because it's easier to notice the lack of that sort of viscosity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of what in my head a stout should have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the only real indication that this is 7%.
That's fair. I'd probably say something similar about Woodland Creatures as well. You don't get very much over in the flavour to suggest it's that almost 7, that's 6.9, but it is a little bit more in the body. Just that slight full, not even fullness, not fuller element, but it does have that just extra heft, a little extra heft to it in the body as well. And the flavours have been coming out more and more, so I will definitely have something else to say about this when we get towards the end of the episode. But now let's launch into our topic, and Aadil, I will let you kind of lead on this, because it's an article, story that you kind of brought to us to talk about.
Yeah, so I mean, it's generally just basically the idea of video games transferring to the other entertainment arenas, namely TV and film, which notoriously, and I think we might get into it, has been more missed than hit for most of the time that things have been adapted. But we're starting to see a shift, and so about a week ago, Amazon announced that they signed a deal with the same studio who co-produced the Sonic movie, to do Disco Elysium and Life is Strange TV shows. So that would be on Prime TV. And then just today or yesterday, we have Netflix's Cuphead cartoon coming out. And apparently Netflix is making a Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, BioShock shows, and a BioShock movie, and Amazon is chasing Mass Effect. These are all the facts. I figured I would just throw out all the series, and then we could talk sort of it through. But that's like that's a lot of things, and just a couple years ago, The Witcher seemed like a gamble.
Yeah. I think The Witcher is not an oddity, but The Witcher is a bit of a different beast because it's come from the novels, and I think The Witcher TV show, whilst it doesn't follow the novels, it's more adapted from the novels than it is from the games. And again, the games adapted from the novels. There is a previous set of source material there. And
it's dense.
Yeah.
It's also, swords and wigs. It's like, yes, people have a better taste from Game of Thrones, but I think The Witcher caught a lot of non-video game players looking for...
Absolutely, but again, non-video game players who are familiar with, like, Game of Thrones, with Lord of the Rings, with stuff that has been in, again, the zeitgeist for the last 20 years in terms of big, epic fantasy settings, and kind of being a little bit familiar with the idea of swords and monsters and that kind of thing. I can see very much how all of these games that have been mentioned, and Mass Effect, Life is Strange, fit within certain kind of categories. Disco Elysium I'm a little bit more suspect about kind of what could actually happen with that sort of thing. But it kind of feels like, not that these sort of streaming services and production companies and things are done with like comic books, but they're at a point where they're kind of saying, well, we've kind of hit the popular things. What else is popular? Video games. Yeah, they're popular. What video games are popular? And it'd be really interesting to see the kind of discussions that studios have had with like Square Enix. If Square Enix even control the potential rights to doing a Life is Strange, anything other than games, or whether that would come back to who did it before? Was it Don't Nod who did Life is Strange originally? Who did it recently? I can't remember. I can't remember who made True Colors. But like some of these, like Life is Strange as a TV show, I can absolutely see how easy that would be to adapt. Light in terms of its kind of otherworldly and sort of more supernatural kind of elements, fits within lots of other, let's say, more teeny aimed kind of shows, I guess, or early 20s kind of slice of life kind of dramas, which have a little hint of sort of supernatural elements to them. Mass Effect hits in there with all the sci-fi geeks, everyone who loves everything that's coming out that's sci-fi at the moment. Disco Elysium, though, it's an odd pick. I love it, but it's an odd pick.
I mean, I think all of them are... They just strike me as boomers finding out what was popular. What's a popular franchise? Because, I'm sorry, BioShock, I've just read a couple pieces in the past few weeks about how, there was a piece this week, BioShock Infinite's, I don't remember where it was, but basically someone was commenting on how BioShock Infinite's story has not aged well, because it's got... I mean, BioShock has always had libertarian, sort of pro-fash bits. But also in Infinite, the only person of color in the entire game is bad guy. You just wouldn't do that anymore.
No, absolutely not. I can't even... that's not something that stuck with me through my Infinite playthrough at all, but...
and things like that, where it's I'm sorry, but yes, it was lauded at the time for its world building and storytelling. I don't think, without agency in that world, I think it falls apart. The world isn't it's how you travel through the world and how you interact with it. If I watched someone else play BioShock, any of the BioShocks, it would not be the same as if I had to make those choices, if I had to go through that thing. Even just the first person, even if you watching a Let's Play still has you following the one path through, but for a TV show you don't really do that, right? That seems like a really bad choice because it doesn't lend itself to the new medium, I don't think. But also it and Mass Effect, I think, are what are you thinking? Because they're just not around. No one cares. I mean, no, some people do, but this isn't super people don't love Mass Effects like World so much that they're champing at the bit for a TV show or a movie. I don't, right? I don't think.
I mean, the Mass Effect kind of community is quite fervent, but I think for more games, right? Not for extra random bits for them to
Yeah,
kind
and
of get to. They want
and
to
those games
play.
have to be exactly what they want.
Well, yes. There is a new Mass Effect game in
Yeah.
development, but pre-production probably at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe that's the goal, is to co-release, but again, I think it's like, so wait, Mass Effect, it was lauded for what? Choice. What can't you do in a TV show?
Yes, yeah, very much. And you can see maybe how Mass Effect could easily be thrown out, as most sci-fi shows is, to like an ensemble cast, rather than say BioShock, which follows a protagonist very, very much. And
Yeah, I
whilst
guess.
yes, you're playing as one character in kind of BioShock, there's a crew almost
You mean Mass Effect?
yes, sorry, Mass Effect, yeah, to sort of be able to play with that. That's easy to sort of translate across, and
Yeah, that's true.
but the problem is that the BioShock chat is more about revisiting. It's probably more about revisiting like the first or second game, right? Going back to Rapture, that sort of setting.
I would assume
as well. Maybe Mass Effect would be looking at it being something to do with the original trilogy, rather than whatever they are going to produce next. Because who knows how well that's going to be received and hit. Unlike the original trilogy, which everybody enjoys.
Wow.
Everybody enjoys.
You remember the end of 3?
Which lots of people enjoy. The majority of.
I think it's aged out of the controversy of the end of 3.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and so it's I'm glad you brought up the Mass Effect sequel coming up, because the timing on that needs to be perfect, I think, because I know I'm jumping around, but I think that'll be okay. It's tanked up after all. Netflix's Cuphead show came out, and like they must have optioned that real quick, because cartoons take a long time to make.
Yeah.
Guess who doesn't care about Cuphead anymore? The internet. Like, it made a huge splash. It was bullet helly. It was cute. It was novel. It could run on the Switch reasonably well, despite being complicated and hard. So you could say you were a real gamer on the non-gamer console. Blah blah. All these things, right? Like the look, I can play this game. You said, I only have a Switch. All that stupid gamer bullshit, right? If you are new to the show, I don't believe any of that nonsense. I'm saying this is this type of discourse that came out around Cuphead. And okay. Like,
yeah.
I think it came out on Game Pass or something for a while, and he had a bit of a blip, but like, it did not stay in the discourse, nor should you expect it to, because video games don't.
Yeah.
But when Netflix now says, "Hey, there's a Cuphead cartoon out," two things. Well, a few things. One, no one cares about Cuphead anymore. Two, why people liked the art style was because it was a game that looked like a cartoon, and making a cartoon that looks like a cartoon isn't the same pull, even if I really like that art style, right? And so the third thing comes in, which is, I better fucking love the world and narrative of Cuphead to want to watch oh wait, what?
Yeah, completely. And it's almost one of those kind of, go back to the late 80s, early 90s, where cartoons were made to sell toys. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon made to sell Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys.
All
30-minute
commercial, 22-minute commercials with 8 minutes of commercials in the middle.
We don't really have that anymore. At least it doesn't feel like we have that anymore. And yes, I can get the idea that, but bash out a Cuphead. If Cuphead 2 had been announced and was coming out in like 6 months' time, put out a TV show. Absolutely, for people to kind of go, wow, this really builds me into getting towards Cuphead 2. This fills that little bit of a gap. It builds me back up to being excited about a game that's then going to come out in 3 months' time or something. As a random release, weird, like odd that's what's kind of come out in now, so far since its release.
I mean, and compare that to, and I think it's because I don't think they have a good sense. Both companies, Amazon and Netflix, are the two that all the things we talked about were strict on those platforms, basically. I don't think anyone at the top really understands video games or the culture or what popularity is, because one thing that did work really well was the LOL show. League of Legends show. Arcane, thank you. I was like, what is it called? I keep calling it LOL. But that happened for a couple reasons. One, Riot was apparently really well involved with the art direction and stuff, and the show was not just like a pass some assets over, we'll hire a studio to make it. They were involved, and Riot knows what butters their bread, so they that show apparently was narratively very good. I know multiple people who have never played LOL and this might be one of my favorite new shows.
Absolutely, I really enjoyed it. And having played League of Legends maybe twice 10 years ago, or maybe not quite 10 years ago, but time.
And the other thing is, LOL is literally a zeitgeist game. It is so old and still, sure, we don't talk about it because we aren't LOL players, because it has its own giant community, right? Cuphead doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Even Far Cry doesn't really have that, which is one of the shows Netflix is make. Far Cry and Assassin's Creed apparently are going to be shows, and BioShock was going to be a movie. It's yes, these are series that have growing they might have the same amount of sales as or money or whatever as LOL, although LOL makes tons of money by being a free game with cosmetics. But Far Cry is 6+ very distinct settings without the same protagonist. So Assassin's Creed has failed. We know it's not great in film, TV. Yes, they make a lot of money, but they make money as video game franchises, and that doesn't mean that even if I like the narrative of Assassin's Creed, for example, which is I think more cohesive than Far Cry, doesn't mean I want to watch a show about it. It feels like it's just well, that makes a lot, that these Ubisoft has a lot, is trolling for some money in a different vector, and someone at Netflix got hooped because there might be a good Assassin's Creed show out there, but that would have to be really well designed, because you can't just crib the games
completely.
And also people don't play Assassin's Creed for just the plot, because I think, or the plot and characterization, because that's what you need, those things to make a show or a movie, because you're taking agency away. So what is the agency scaffolded on? And with League of Legends, this is, I don't know if there's comics or stories or whatever, but this was actually a way of filling in the gaps so the game doesn't really fill in. You could not know any of the relationships between these characters in LoL because of the type of game it is.
Yep.
That means LoL players have an investment, who are invested, will want to see the story, versus Assassin's Creed players who know the story don't want to just see the story. The type of game matters, the type of fan base matters, and the fact that it's a franchise that is distinct games that are similar means that it's just I'm already bored with I every time I try and play an Assassin, I didn't get into Origins as much as you did. I played it a little after you, and I think I was I see the novelty, but and then I put it down. Even then, so the two eras roughly of Assassin's Creed, I've never been oh yes, I must find out more of the story. Oh, I would really like to just watch the story unfold. That's not why I play an Assassin's Creed game. That's not why I play a Far Cry game.
Yep. They need to, for all of these, apart from maybe Life is Strange, need to
Yeah, I
do
mean,
something. Need to do something very different. It cannot just be here is another story within the universe. Here is a retold story that we've already had this thing, kind of almost like the Assassin's Creed movie tried to sort of do. They need to do something different, as you say. Arcane fills a gap. Very much is aimed at people who love anime, people who love League of Legends and want to know more about the world and some of the characters. Great, and pulled in lots of other people. Pulled me in from having conversations with Adam about it. I don't think any of these games that have been mentioned do that. There's nothing. Who are these aimed at? Is it aimed at like Kim? Doesn't play video games but watches stuff on Netflix. What would be aimed at her? Well, I can see that she absolutely would watch something Life is Strange related. Little bit more drama-y, little bit of supernatural kind of powers. Sort of. I
was gonna say
lent into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Stranger Things, teen drama.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, get it.
Completely. Perfect. Tons of, especially with the games also jumping between different characters and it not being Life is Strange 1, Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange 3 following the same character all the way through. That absolutely leads itself to going across to TV. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Everything else is just weird.
Yeah, I mean, someone sold an Ezio trilogy of like, look, it's already 3 seasons.
It feels just, I don't know, it definitely feels like a money grabby kind of situation, right? They sort of like, right, we've exhausted the stories that we can get from these people, we've exhausted the stories that we can get with these people, and I know there's other, I can't remember who it was, but I definitely saw something pop up saying that someone is fronting up like X amount of millions for new storytellers to kind of like come forward with their pitches. They're very open to sort of new. I don't think it was one of the streaming people. It was the different production company or something. But very much like saying, come to us with your pitches and we will see kind of like what we can do. We want as many original pitches as possible. And the easy thing is for people to lean into video games, right? And to go, cool, there's a world already built. There are stories already kind of done. We can just copy the Marvel thing and go, cool, let's adapt comic books, 5 to 10 and make it into a movie or make it into a TV show, that kind of thing. And
yeah,
it feels like that kind of moment has been and gone, and very much with Marvel, absolutely. And even Marvel then delved into the world of kind of movies before they had the MCU with, like Edward Norton's Hulk, the first Iron Man sort of movie, these kinds of
even
things.
Before that,
yeah, which
they struggled with
making
it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was only really then Iron Man which kind of hit, and they went, "Oh, cool, there is something there.
Yeah,
let's delve more into that."
I mean, but like this week, Uncharted, starring Spider-Man, came out. Apparently, it's not very good.
No, but it seems to be doing okay. Like financially, but
yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they released another Tom Holland movie after Spider-Man didn't make the Oscars, but did make $1 billion. Right.
I mean, I can see Uncharted never making the Oscars as well. But I mean, Sony be Sony, and they just want to capitalize on franchises or actors essentially. So yes, put Tom Holland in as Nathan Drake seems a weird choice considering like 10 years ago when they suggested a film was going to happen and Mark Wahlberg was going to be Nate, and now he's Sully instead because so much time has passed.
Yeah.
And
also
weird,
but like what a weird cast. Like it's definitely if we give you this role, will you like undo your option and so we can hire the young Tom Holland is too young. I agree, like Marky Mark is too old for Nathan Drake right now, but Tom Holland is too young. but that's fine because haven't seen it. Like, it's at like I think they're making it very clear that it's the beginning of his thievery. Like he's a petty thief at the beginning or something.
Again, Uncharted has delved into sort of young Nate and Sully and their relationship. And having not seen the film, it'd be interesting to see if it is and leans into the game lore or whether they have removed it completely and gone, hey, here's now a new origin sort of thing for these characters, which is what I would think they've done, rather than leaning into sort of the game lore and having to allow people or having to expect audiences to have some kind of prior knowledge of sort of who these characters are. I imagine they've just rebooted it, started again as a completely different movie to the games, which I can see again. All of these other things, these other franchises like Mass Effect, sure, make the main character and call them Shepard, and kind of have similar-ish sort of stuff pulled from the world, but tell a different story. Fine, that kind of gets people in, right? They want a new story. They want something else. It kind of feels like, yeah, we can have a soft reboot of the franchise, or at least these characters told in a different medium rather than returning to them in game sort of form, and that can keep evolving and stuff. And obviously us as people who enjoy video games, play a lot of them, we want new stories, right? We want new experiences. It doesn't have to be with the same characters. We like certain mechanics, we like certain worlds that have kind of been built and want more things within that realm. So sure, take those characters, throw them in movies, throw them in TV shows, do what you want with them. Absolutely.
I mean,
but
we also have...
Am I going to watch that? Probably not, unless I'm very invested in it. Is someone else who has no idea about this going to watch that?
So yeah, I think this is the thing where it's like... I think like Sonic did really well, right? And I've watched almost all of it, so not well enough for me to finish. But it was a thing to put on while I tidied my room. Like it's fine, right? Mm-hmm. And like the casting was really good. I think the controversy on the weird teeth made it better, because people were interested. And so when it came out, people were like, "Well, I kind of want to see what it looks like now. Mm-hmm. Oh, is it going to be a horror show?" And then enough people saw it. There's like, yeah, it's not bad, right? It's also a kids movie. This is the thing. Ultimately, it's got a fun-looking cartoon thing. It's friendly to kids and families, but it's also Sonic. So even, like I don't want to be sexist, but like people of our generation, when we were kids, more dudes played video games for longer. Mm-hmm. I say that because I think you have a system in your house, you're gonna play it, but like, so dad and or mom, right, will remember Sonic and be like, yeah, I'll take the kids to that because at least I might have some nostalgia vibes with Sonic. And then you see it and you're like, this is not really Sonic except it's blue and Robotnik looks like Robotnik, but the rest is entirely different. Mm-hmm. But that's fine because really it's a kids movie. It's like not meant to replicate, really. It's like nostalgia vibes that serve a purpose that we know is a sure thing that people will go to. Yeah. And like that's why like the Mario movie starring Chris Pratt will probably be fine in the sense of like money. Like they will sell tickets because it'll be a family friendly thing because it's Nintendo and that brand is super strong. But I think the key is it's a cartoon that a family will go to just or watch whatever, however it comes out, because you sometimes just need to take the family or watch a thing, right? But I'm in this day and age of streaming and shit. My Netflix paralysis is never going to put me on the Amazon Prime TV BioShock show. Right? Like we're in that, unless it gets like amazing reviews, unless it's like done in a really interesting way. But all these franchises we've mentioned are very much gamer franchise stuff. They're like things that if you play video games, easily, right? But like if you don't, you don't. Right, that's one of the reasons why Max Payne failed utterly both times it hit the box office, right? Because it's not a household name in the way that Mario and Sonic are, and it doesn't have a consistent rabid following like League of Legends. But the problem there is, if you are a gamer, I don't think you want to watch a show about BioShock or Far Cry. To me, is like, which one? What? Like The only consistency in Far Cry is you climb towers and then you try and slowly take down bases. Right?
Yeah,
That's Far Cry. There isn't
essentially.
a place, there isn't a person who be Far Cry.
Hmm.
So the only way for a fan to feel like it's Far Cry is if you do the horrible things that we're all tired of Far Cry for.
Yeah, you
And
got.
it would be way worse to watch.
Yep. Yep. And it's why video game movies have failed time and time again. Essentially, Hitman, Doom, even more kind of.
No, Hitman's the one that had two. Far Cry. Max Payne had one.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah.
Max Payne did have, yes. Yeah. It's kind of, I was. It made me think about what was the bollocks? What's the show's name? It's gone from my mind. Oh, Man in the High Castle. Right, a TV show which I watched maybe the first season of, maybe not even all of the first season, and then thought, oh, that's a show that I should go back to. And Kim said, yeah, we'll go back to that and try it. And I watched the first. We watched the first season again together.
Mm-hmm.
I think we started the second season together, and I said, I've lost a bit of interest. You carry on. And then I dipped back in and out of it, never really being that kind of interested. It didn't pull me away from kind of any other shows. It wasn't like, oh, Man in the High Castle's out, I have to go and kind of watch that. But, critically, I think it did reasonably.
I mean, it was Amazon's first, like, proper, well-reviewed prestige.
Yeah, yep. But it's never been one of those where I'm like, yeah, cool, let's definitely go and watch that. And there's tons of shows like this. And all of these game franchises make me feel exactly the same way as I felt about Man in the High Castle. Right, TV show comes out and I'll be like, I'll watch a bit of it, and if I'm not feeling it, I'll drop it very, very quickly. I'm not going to stick around and just be like, right, I've started it now, I should finish it out. There's nothing really there. And the only reason I thought about Man in the High Castle was the whole jumping between kind of like timeline sort of things, and we were talking about Bioshock Infinite, and Bioshock Infinite almost came across to me thinking, are they just going to make like Man in the High Castle / Quantum Leap, where you jump between different areas, different worlds, but they're all kind of connected and affect each other in various kinds of ways. Some information from one age, or one kind of parallel universe, or however Man in the High Castle kind of works, and that then can help you affect one of the other ones. How would the next Bioshock game have worked out? Ken Levine basically just told 2K to fuck off and essentially just made it so they could never make any more games by saying, oh, this is infinite and he can go wherever he wants now, thanks, bye. But bringing it into a TV show, do they continue that, or do they just retreat back to known quantity, very well critically acclaimed, option number one of playing the first or second game as a TV show? And I'm not interested in any of it.
Yeah.
The only thing that interests me is the one that is the weirdest for me, which is Disco Elysium. How?
Yeah.
What? Why?
This is the one that really...
What's that gonna be? What? I don't get it. What would they do with it?
Why do people like Disco Elysium? It's an RPG where you have to do a lot of nitty-gritty talking.
Yep.
It is supremely well written, but lauded for how immersed as a character you are, because you are doing, your actions mean so much. So how would that possibly work unless they did one Netflix's like experimental? Oh no, this is Amazon doing it though, but like the weird choose your own adventure show that they tried.
Oh, the Black Mirror one that they did.
Yeah, that season or whatever season, right? But like, no, I mean, but also like, then you just should play the game at that point. Like if you're trying to make a shitty FFMB game. But like, so I'm so curious because it's such a bad fit for the medium. but also the writers were very good. So it really depends on if the studio was actually going to be involved. But I don't even like it. Yeah, it's the one that made me go, huh? Like, because Mass Effect, you could be like, okay, they're just going to make an Expanse-like kind of show, maybe with intrigue or something, like all the universe stuff and all the big plot, high sci-fi plot elements. That's been done in Expanse, which is a really good show. Yeah, cool. Okay, I can see Mass Effect, like you said, being an ensemble affair where you zoom away from Shepard and you make it less about Shepard doing the ultimate choice and everyone else just kind of being in the background. Yeah, that could work. I don't think I will watch it, but that could work. With Disco Elysium, it's like, how work can it?
Very much. And as you shared a PC Gamer article on it, written by Ted Litchfield from a few days ago, about a week ago. They say, I raised an eyebrow at the prospect of Disco Elysium show airing on Prime TV for a host of reasons, but especially the fact that a militant labour dispute forms the backdrop of the game's plot, and Amazon has a well-documented history of poor working conditions at its warehouses and suppressing union activity. I find it hard to imagine the vibe not being off with such a project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's the most interesting, but I think probably the one that's easiest to fail. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think at least it in its very nature seems like such a. Well, I guess we got to swing for the stars, right? Like, because how else could it possibly work? And the other ones just seem like. I mean, I'm prejudiced against Ubisoft a bit, but it's like, yeah, it's gonna be real, like, that Amazon show Jack Ryan, where Jim from The Office plays Harrison Ford's character from Patriot Games.
Yes.
And it's just like, I'm a spy show. Like, I assume Far Cry is gonna be I'm a jungle spy show. And Assassin's Creed's gonna be like a
historical spy.
I'm a historic spy.
I'm a Renaissance spy.
Yeah. Like, I'm assuming these are going to be very rote. Basically, because the source material doesn't have anything. I mean, except Assassin's Creed weird sci-fi genetic nonsense, which I am curious how they will deal with, because, I mean, no one who plays Assassin's Creed pays attention to that part of the games, do they?
I certainly don't. No.
Yeah.
Not that I've played an Assassin's Creed since Origins, but I don't know what they do with the real world stuff in the latest ones. But yeah. I mean, these are all going to be made. Doesn't matter what we say about them; they're all going to be made.
Oh yeah.
So let's see what comes out and what happens, and both of us will probably dip in to say episode 1 of all of these things. Maybe to dip out quite quickly, but who knows?
Yeah, I feel like all these weird adaptations, like, I'm already exhausted for, because they seem like you said, kind of like, we're just trying to zeitgeist hit. We're just trying to, like, do the thing, use IP so we don't have to make something that builds its own audience, right? We'll try and steal an audience from somewhere else. It reminds me of how I feel about the MCU right now. Like, at the beginning of last year, pumped. WandaVision, Loki, we both, like, we had a podcast that we talked about these things in the very not so weekly Geek Out Weekly. And now I realize that, like, What If I was really pumped for, because I loved the What If comics growing up. I thought they were great. It's a cartoon. I've got a soft spot for that medium. Apparently that's done. It's outdone. Like, there's like all 9 episodes happened, and there's going to be 9 more in this year, maybe, I guess. But also, Hawkeye came out. Didn't watch a single episode. I'm 2 Spider-Mans behind now, because I still haven't seen the one in England or wherever they go. The Mysterio one.
Yeah, a few places in Europe. Kim and I watched it over the kind of winter holiday break.
Yeah. Yeah, let alone the $1 billion one. And I thought, like, all the hype on that, I was like, oh, I should really watch the other one. Never, still nothing. Like, and I think it's because they do have a slump in the same in that sameness, in that like it feels like you're just like that's the reason I'm really excited for Doctor Strange, because it seems to at least be poking the status quo. It seems to be at least doing something different.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Far From Home is samey, but everything else for a while has been like, okay, so this is a Marvel movie. We kind of know what's going to happen in the third act right away. We know kind of what kind of spectacle I saw. I watched Shang-Chi on the airplane back from Canada, and it was the same thing. It was like, I like this, but also it is the same sort of CGI swarm. Like a bunch of CGI blobs attack the good guys, and somehow the main good guy and the main bad guy will be separated from them so they can have a CGI fight that doesn't include all the big blobs. That happens in Marvel movies, and I am done with that. Like, that's one part of the skeleton that's very like it's just, I don't need to do that. Like,
Yeah, I think it's why lots of people really enjoyed the Netflix Marvel shows when they came
yeah,
out.
they were they
Jessica
had
Jones
too much.
was doing something different. It wasn't
Yeah,
always big fights and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of character building in those shows. Um, we'll see how it all plays out with all of these things. There's so many different stories, franchises that you can translate into other mediums. So we'll see how these ones go, and essentially if then the games industry is then just absolutely ransacked for stories and franchises and things. It will probably rely on these first few to see how much want there is for this before it gets absolutely crazy. But yeah, that's all to come. That's years away yet, so we'll see what happens.
I do have to say that I have found out from a different article that Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain were announced as leads in The Division.
Of course they were.
Oh God.
Oh no, Jessica Chastain. I like Jessica Chastain.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Tom Clancy's Ghost is now being absolutely pillaged for things, I would imagine. So at least we'll get The Division, we'll get Ghost Recon. We'll probably have a Splinter Cell movie before we have a game, I would imagine.
It's funny you mentioned that.
No, don't.
It's also on this slate.
Is it really?
I'm pretty sure I saw that on this article. Yeah, Splinter Cell, but it's TBA. They've got a script, but it hasn't. It's been stuck for years.
Yeah, I'd imagine they've had a script for the last 15 years, probably, for Splinter Cell. Let's finish there for this week, for this topic episode. Let us know what you think about all of these potential games coming to the same screen in a slightly different format. At Tanked Upcast on the socials, or go to outoflives.net to find the post for this podcast episode and comment on there, or click on the little link in that website post, which will take you to Discord. You can come and chat to us all the time about this in our little growing community. I'm at Nova_47. What you're pointing at?
I was saying, you can always comment on the YouTube video with your thoughts on what you'd like to see adapted, or whether you think we're out to lunch and actually BioShock Infinite is the best idea for a show next to Disco Elysium.
Or you can do that live as we're having the conversation if you come over to the Out of Lives Network over on Twitch on a Wednesday evening and catch us whilst we're recording this live. I'm at Nova_47. Aadil is at the Omniarch. Perfect. That's the places that we exist. Let's just finish on our beers for a minute. The Woodland Creatures, it did open up more as I drank it, but not much more. A little bit more. I got a little bit more of that honeycomb, but it folded into that lactosey sort of sweetness, that roasted coffee with a little bit of cream kind of sweetness, without doing too much. And I think the pistachio got a little bit lost in the flavour. And I wonder if that comes from it being 6.9% rather than the King of the Woodland beer, which I think is about 12. 11 point high. Yeah, it's a bigger beer, and I would imagine that flavour would be much, much bigger, punchier, and you'd get a little bit more of everything in there. So it's a stout that I would absolutely drink again, no doubt about that, but it didn't do anything new or a huge amount to sort of keep me interested in it. I wasn't going back to the beer to be like, ooh, this is a lovely flavour that I got from it. It was more like, yeah, cool, this is fine, I'll have another sip. Right. So yeah, that's it from the Woodland Creatures, unfortunately. What about the Profanity Stout, Aadil?
It opened up a little more. So getting used to that very roasted taste. Interestingly, by the end, I was getting the acridity of a more burnt sort of taste that I wasn't at the beginning. Which is good because it helps. It gives it a bit more of a finish because it only comes in at the end. But unfortunately, when I started the beer, I was like, oh, it's kind of got a weak finish, but it does give a bit of a moment for that sweetness, that sort of light, very light, fruity, appley, florally sort of melange. But now that acridity is lasting longer through the finish, it's really masking that, and so I'm if it was just this taste the whole way through, I'd be like, this is solid roasted, slightly burnt, stout, great. But because it had sort of more flavors that are now getting lost, I'm a little disappointed. Even though I really liked how it tasted the first half, and I like how it tasted in the second half, but the fact that it's moved from sort of a more dynamic, more layered taste to a more straightforward one that feels like it's taking those tastes away because of just the ordering of them. Like if it started kind of acrid and then faded into sort of, oh yeah, there's something else there, I'd be like, this is amazing. Instead, it's like, I wish you didn't take away the lightness with this acridity. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that it was, like I said, more burnt taste, which is like fine as a finish, but actually I was commenting on how it was roasted but not burnt in the beginning, and so I feel like the thing that's come out is the thing that I didn't want and the thing that I liked it for not having. So a little bit disappointing, but don't get me wrong, it's still a really tasty beer.
Good. Okay, nice. So that's it for us this week. They've been the beers. They've been the games / TV / movie franchises that we'd like to talk about for this week. As we say, go to outoflies.net to be able to talk to us about everything and comments. Join us in the Discord and do all of the joyous things that you can do on one website which posts various things. Hooray! Thanks for joining us. We will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net